The devastating timeline of a family tragedy in Manitoba reveals the systemic failure to protect an Indigenous mother, the fatal consequences of unchecked trauma, and one survivor's relentless fight for accountability. Chapter 1. The Gathering Storm. In the early 1990s, the Paul family lived a life rooted in the Métis community of Saint Eustache, Manitoba. Maurice, a respected member of the Manitoba Métis Federation, and Sherry, a loving mother, were building their world. But a shadow was beginning to fall over their home. A former family acquaintance, André Ducharme, began a campaign of escalating threats and stalking against Sherry. This wasn't a secret threat. Sherry Paul took action, repeatedly going to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, reporting the escalating behavior, the fear, and the specific threats to her life. But the warnings, the detailed pleas for help, were dismissed. No protective measures were put in place. The system designed to protect her looked the other way. The stage was set for a tragedy that should never have happened. Chapter 2. The Night of Horror, January 27, 1993. The threats became a brutal reality. André Ducharme, armed with a rifle, broke into the Paul family home and took the entire family hostage. 9-year-old Fallon Farinacci and her 2 brothers were trapped inside with their parents. During the standoff, the eldest brother, Carson, then a teenager, was bound at gunpoint. In an incredible act of bravery, Carson managed to escape the house and run for help, contacting nearby relatives who made the critical call to the police. The RCMP was alerted. The danger was known. What followed was an agonizing 6-hour wait. Despite being warned that Ducharme was armed and the family was in grave danger, the police presence remained outside. It wasn't until the early morning hours of January 28th that the RCMP finally entered the residence. Inside, they found Sherry Paul and Maurice Paul, murdered by Ducharme. The 3 children had survived the night, but their parents had not. Chapter 3. The immediate aftermath of the double murder was not marked by healing, but by dispersal. The trauma was immense, but the support was non-existent. The surviving Paul children were separated. Fallon was relocated to live with relatives in Ontario. Her brothers remained in Manitoba. This separation was not just physical, it was a severance from her heritage. Chapter 4. The Ripple Effect. Trauma is not an event confined to a single night. It is a current that runs through a lifetime. The heroism of 1993, the escape that saved the lives of his siblings, could not save Carson Paul from the invisible wounds he carried. In 2004, 11 years after that brutal night, Carson Paul died by suicide at the age of 29. Carson's death solidified Fallon's belief. The tragedy was not just the act of a single man, but the consequence of a systemic indifference to the safety and well-being of Indigenous families. Chapter 5. Turning pain into purpose. The grief became a catalyst. In 2017, Fallon Farinacci stepped forward to share her family's story on the national stage at the MMIWG inquiry. Her testimony was a devastating account of violence, neglect, and intergenerational trauma. Fallon articulated the injustice, the stalking ignored, the 6-hour delay, the family splintered, the subsequent loss of her brother. Her purpose was clear: to ensure no other family endures the same lack of protection and support. Today, Fallon continues her advocacy. She is actively fundraising and working with Indigenous-led organizations, calling for deep systemic change. Not just better policing, but better mental health support, cultural reconnection, and genuine accountability when institutions fail. The Farinacci family tragedy is a timeline defined by loss, but the final chapter is still being written by a survivor who refuses to let her family's pain be forgotten. Her story raises the vital question: when will the systems of power finally listen and finally act?